Hey, welcome to RiverCity-Media. Phil Harris, Randall Cunningham. Phil, lucky to have a little basketball, girls basketball, even my favorite kind of basketball with us tonight. Coach, if I slaughter your name, there's about four different ways to pronounce your name. So I'm going with Childers until somebody tells me different. So from Scottsboro High School, Coach Childers, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Proud to be here. Yes, and Childers, you got it right.
Hey, you know what? My Tennessee education, I wouldn't put my money on it most of the time. Phil, why don't you take us away and I'll jump in here when I get some questions.
Okay, well, Coach, once again, welcome in. It's been another banner season. I want to kind of sort of touch back to last year, just briefly. A state championship run. You beat Ramsey in the finals, 54-53. This team, had some real things go their way. Lost two key players in Morgan Perkins and Bree Sexton. Of course, we know how good Morgan is. She hasn't made any immediate impact in softball at Northeast. And so she is an outstanding player. Losing those two, were you kind of worried in the offseason? I know you had a lot coming back and a lot of upperclassmen coming back, but this is a different team.
Right, for sure. And also, Bree's having a really good season at Sneed, basketball wise too. So it was big losing them. And last year we had nine kids that we played all the same. And so we could be okay with a little foul trouble here and there. We had spots. We could fill any spot, every spot. And this year's been a little tough. It's been a little bit different. We're behind the eight ball a little more so as far as, if we get in foul trouble or whatever. But, we have seven now, the same seven that we play. We have a couple more we mix in if we need to. But, all those seven play heavy minutes. And we've been fortunate so far to stay healthy. And, I don't know if, you can't completely replace Brigham Morgan, but I think we've done as well as could have been expected thus far.
Yeah, well, it helps, when a program, they know how to win. And a lot of times, and I've seen this a lot of times, you may feel like it was your best team, but then that next bunch steps up, steps into their role and even takes a program to a higher level. Yeah, they may not be as deep, but it helps knowing how to win and playing in those big games.
Oh, for sure. And we've had to have kids, losing Bree's size. We have plenty usually it's opposite. You don't have enough guards. We've had guards everywhere, but losing Bree's size, we've had kids like Maya Martin have to step up and guard post players sometimes. And we've asked a lot more of Izzy Nelson, and she's come through with a lot bigger stat lines this year. Been a lot more, a part of the scoring than she was last year.
Yeah, definitely. So, of course, the schedule's challenging. I mean, one of the best teams you've played all year is in your area, and that's Guntersville. I mean, you've been able to beat them, but, that kind of is worrisome down the road because they're capable. They're one of those teams that's capable. But the schedule has been challenging. You played Fort Payne twice. You've played Ider. You have played Bob Jones. Beat them over there. They're the number 3 or 4 ranked team in Class 7A. So the schedule has been challenging.
Right. I think at one time we played. We played the number one in 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A. Ider, North Side Mountains is number 1 in 2A now. St. James, we played at Supreme Courts. Plainview, number 1 in 4A, and of course number 2, Guntersville in 5A. Among many others, Fort Payne's a really, really good team, ranked in 6A. Just a lot of ranked teams. And I think the two teams that we lost to in Tennessee are both ranked second in their division there too, which is really, really tough. So just really tough schedule. But I think it's helped prepare us, made us faster, made us play, have to play harder, have to dig deeper to rebound. That was really good about going to Tennessee. Just the toughness aspect of it.
I think, I remember when we had Coach Ellison on, and he talked about this. When you go up and play in Tennessee, it's kind of a different level up there. They've been playing basketball for a long time, and you get a lot out of playing those schools.
Right. It's girls basketball is big there. They've been playing since the 20s, I believe, and it's just a real big, a lot of emphasis put on it, and it makes us have to play another way. You can't just pressure. Everybody sees pressure like we pressure up there, so we got to figure out other ways to play and grind and. And back to Guntersville, I didn't get a chance to finish them. Just really, really good really good team. Three really top-notch players, and the other ones shoot it really well. And they're so big, you don't realize how big they are till you're on the floor, actually on the floor with them. But yeah, they're a really, really good team.
Yeah, very, very good. I mean, they're not one you can just chalk up and say we're going to win this one, because they're going to be there to battle you throughout, and you
sure.
may see them 2 more times.
Yes, I mean, hopefully that's what we hope.
Yeah, definitely understand. Well, I want to talk about, of course, your team right now. They're 21-3, ranked number 1 in Class 5A. And have run the gauntlet. Of course, lost to the 2 teams up in Tennessee. Well, the other night, you beat Fort Payne the first time, but this team is very good, very much improved. They beat you, but it's one of those nights where I guess you could say, that's the thing about basketball. There's so many intangibles in a basketball game. And I guess this was one of those times where it was their night.
All right. We knew going in, like I spoke of before, we lost there last year after beating them pretty comfortably at home. The year before last, we came back, won at the very end. We knew it was going to be tough. They're a really good team. And I think the first time we played them, I think we made 15 threes, 15, 16 threes, something like that, where we shot so well it didn't matter who we were playing. And I told everybody then, I was like, they're a way better team than that. And they've gotten better as the year went along too. And the other night was just kind of the perfect storm. We had some getting foul trouble early. I don't want to make excuses or whatever, but Izzy wasn't right. She was sick, so she missed easy ones that she normally don't. And they had 3 kids to play really well. So it was just kind of the perfect storm combination of a lot of things. But at this point, all we can do is, use it, realize, we're not invincible. We come out and don't play well, we can get beat just like anybody else. So, I mean, we're going to try to use it and find another level.
Yeah. It is one of those nights where 5 and 25 made a big deal, or 5 and 11 were big in that game. I know they are. Naomi's number 5. I know she had a great night, scored 30 points. I didn't get to see the game. I wished I would have. We had a podcast, but I'd like to have seen you guys or you gals play, your girls play. But, Coach, looking at that, and the reason I wanted to bring that up, it's never good to lose. But do you think maybe losing one this late in the season where you kind of you go back and kind of reset and focus on little things?
I think that's always the hope. And last year, we had a couple of games stretch in a row, Jose Green Madison Academy, where we made 1 3 in 2 games, just shot horrible, lost at the buzzer against Jose Green. And I think that made us just kind of refocus, find another gear, refocus. So that's the hope that this year, and I believe so far, we played well against a solid Madison Academy team Friday, which is our only game since the Fort Payne. So I think we can spin it positive.
Yeah, I definitely say. Of course, like you said, the first area game is Friday, 6:00 at Scottsboro against Fairview. And of course, you'll play the winner of Gunnersville and Arab in the area finals. What kind of problems does I know you've beaten them twice. So what kind of problems does Fairview give you going into that game?
Well, they're similar. They're really guard oriented, really quick. We've actually, actually Arab and Fairview had the coin toss to see who we played, and Arab won the coin toss and played Gunnersville. But we actually feel like we match up better with Plainview because it's a lot of guard, everywhere. Gunnersville felt like they match up better with Arab just because it's a lot of bigs, on the floor. But we've, like I said, we've had success 2 times before, and we just try to make it a fast game and try to get a lot of shots up and hope to try to out rebound them because they're not particularly big. Get a lot of shots, hope to try to out rebound them.
I understand. Well, Coach, talk about some of the girls on this basketball team. I know that I think you've got 9 on the roster, Ella White and Gracie White. Talk about some of the players, the veterans that came back that have, what they've done during the season, and maybe some of the ones that's kind of gone above expectations.
Okay. Well, our point guards, Ella and Grace White twins, they do what they do. They shoot when they need to, but they're pass first players that just really, really hound and defend the ball. As everybody knows, that's their job. They take pride in it, and that's what they do. They change the game by just pressure, denying other teams' point guards, and just never letting them bring the ball down the court for free or easy. Abigail Shelton, she stepped up, and which we have 7 that play. We have 5 that usually start that we game plan with, but that's really irrelevant because we don't know who's going to play at the end and who's going to play the most minutes every night. They all share them. Abigail stepped up in a starting role this year. She's playing a lot better. She's kind of like a little coach on the floor. She's very vocal. Her and Izzy Nelson are the two of the most vocal players that we've ever coached. They're kind of like coaches on the floor, talking through plays and sets and talking on defense. And I've said this with Abigail's size, she's one of the biggest overachievers that we have. Just starting on a state championship 5A team, just with sheer grit and determination. Tatum Shelton, she starts again this year. She came off the bench started some last year, whatever. She's one of our best, better outside shooters. Having a really good year. She's improved driving the ball to the goal, stuff a lot more. Let's see, of course, Izzy Nelson, of course, she started last year. She's second team All-State last year, and she was a state tournament MVP. She's really stepped up, giving us a lot more points and just bigger stat lines this year. Without Bree, we've had to ask a lot more of Izzy for, as far as defending and blocking shots. And, I think last time I looked, she was averaging 17 or 18 and 12 rebounds a game. Just big stat lines. Caroline Dawson, she was one of our star players last year. She broke the school's 3-point record maybe about a month ago. She's just a junior, but she broke the all-time 3-point record. I guess about a month ago, sometime around Christmas. Just a really, really good shooter. Her and Tatum over the last couple of years have been our best outside shooters. And Maya Martin, she comes off the bench. Like I said, she could be a starter. Sometimes she finishes a game, but she's just an all-around super athlete. She plays every so many sports, and she'll come straight from cross country, a little bit late to basketball. It might take her a little while to catch up, but she's one of our most valuable players right now. Just athletic. She shoots it well. She drives it well. Just one of our best defenders and plays, so very hard. But I'm trying to think. I hope I didn't leave out any of the 7 there that plays that are in the main rotation. Then off the bench, Avery Grace Long, she didn't play last year. She played with us year before. She'd had a lot of injuries. She came back and she really steps in. And when Izzy gets in foul trouble or something, she steps in and plays the post for us. Drea Prater is she's a sophomore that comes off the bench and gives us some good minutes when needed be. And Terry Austin's a junior that will come off the bench and give us some minutes when need be.
Besides the 2 white girls, coming off of last year, it's easy to rest on your laurels, and don't work quite as hard, and thinking you can just possibly just roll the basketballs out there and still win basketball games. That's not true. This is a different team. Leadership. How good has the leadership been on this basketball team? Because that's kind of what holds it all together.
Well, I tell the coaches all the time, we just have to cherish of how good of kids that we have that have been there with us the whole time and started playing together and 3rd and 4th grade is when they all started playing together, and we've been able to keep them together. And the same coaches, Shane Small and Kelly Nelson, started coaching them then, and we've kept it all together. Shane still coaches the fall leagues and summer stuff for us, that the school coaches can't. So we've been able to keep it all together, and it's really a close-knit, almost like a family. And that's what we say all the time is family, It's just been a really, really close-knit group. And leadership, we don't have to work. Everybody does what they're supposed to always. And it's a team that, I've never had or seen a team that with kids that just never take a play off either. They do what's right. Always on time, always doing what's right, doing the right thing. And like I said, just never taking a play off, and just really good leaders and leadership. By the time we play somebody, the their responsibility is they'll already know the matchup. They've watched film. They'll know the matchups before we ever watch anything together. They already know it. They already have it. And it's always really, really, really close to what, to what me and the coaches would have done anyway. That's how close that we all are.
Yeah, and I guess what you're saying is it's tough to beat a team that actually loves each other, and
Yes.
and I'm going to guess a lot of times that you prepare these young ladies on the court, and make the calls and whatnot, but they hold each other accountable. They don't have to stand over them; they watch over each other and make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do.
For sure, and it's important to them. Like, the Fort Payne loss, this is important, and they're just as destroyed as we are. It's not something we're trying to, what I've learned about these is they naturally go hard. They do what's right, but then we can get on them. And it's not often that we need to, but we can get on them and motivate them. They can be motivated. They'll own up, find another gear. And when it comes tournament time, they find another gear. And that's what they've done for, 3 or 4 years they've been together. And it's just a really special group. And back to the leaders, like I said, we have, I feel like everybody does their job on the floor. And then our vocal leaders, are Izzy and Abigail. They're the vocal leaders that just talk through everything. And that's just what they do. And it just really, really helps, when they're on the floor.
Well, Coach, I know there's a lot of things that goes on behind the scenes that makes a program successful, and I'm sure your assistant coaches, I'd like for you to mention them because I know they're a huge part. But you also have working parts behind the scenes, and a lot of times that's parents and boosters. And when these kids come from great families and have great supporting cast around them, that makes your job a whole lot easier.
Oh gosh, we'll start with the assistants first. Kelly Nelson's the first assistant. He knows what I'm thinking before I say it. He just has a way of seeing basketball just like I do. I can't even describe it. He's so good with that. Coach Nita Tolliver, she's our JV coach. And then Zach Belvin is our JV assistant coach, which we, obviously we all have different jobs with the varsity. Myself and Coach Nelson, we're doing most of the game planning, getting, that stuff, the actual hands-on. Coach Tolliver Coach Belvin, he's good at film, and he'll get stats and film for us and break that stuff down. Coach Tolliver kind of does a little bit of everything. She's a good JV coach for us, and she just kind of takes care of just the day-to-day stuff. She takes care of so much for us, the ordering, the planning, she takes care of so much that I don't have to do, that just really, really works and just saves us so much time. What was the next question? I'm sorry.
Well, folks behind the scene, like parents, booster people. I mean, there's some that stand out that really make a successful program.
Right. Well, Shane White, which is the twins' dad, he's our tip-off club president. And he just does so very much. He's so good with tech stuff and handling stuff. Just does so much stuff. He's up to school all the time, just whether it be hanging signs or setting something up or fixing scoreboards for us, anything and everything he does. But as far as the parents and the community in general, and I said this, we had a meeting when they were real young, and I said, like any team, coaches can only push so hard before you hit the level that the level of, and I don't mean being mean, but the accountability that the kids can take. You're going to hit a certain level that the kids and the parents can take, the community can take. With this group, we've had so many, just everybody's positive. We hadn't had to worry about anybody wanting to be a social media hero and get on there and blast and be negative and all that you see at other places. Everybody's been positive. We've all been in this together, with the same goal. And these parents, and that's why they're here. The parents, they have instilled responsibility in their kids, and from, third and fourth grade, and with high expectations. And that just makes it so easy from a coaching side and the parents are not there to make excuses for them. They're there to hold them accountable. And I think it's just a really, really special group. And if it's just special to be able to see it all work together. And that's why I feel like about the championship. It's just about, the parents, the community, everything that we were able to keep together, all involved. I said at our banquet last year, anybody could have ruined it all by being negative and on social media, or being negative in the stands, or trying to, getting people and arguing about this and that and the other. Anybody could have ruined it, but nobody did. And that's just what's, nobody talks about it in sports. Nobody wants to talk about that, but that's so the most important thing. That's the most important thing, that lets coaches coach and teach and hold kids accountable, knowing that, we're all working together.
Yeah. And of course, and we've talked about this before, raising that blue trophy is important. I mean, that's the ultimate thing, but there's so many things that go around it and so many things that go into it. It's great for a community to be all a part of that, not just the players and coaches, but everybody involved. It's special. The memories are special, and the relationships are special.
It was a very special time, and we coaches talk that, whenever you're having a bad day or anything, all you've got to do is, flip back to March 1st on Facebook or whatever, or the text message or whatever like that. And that's what we always just say, what a day. Like, it immediately makes you feel good. Just like I said, just to be able to share it with the whole community. And, we travel well. We have a lot of support too. Our girls, our girls program has, and basketball in general, and really sports in general at Scottsboro High School, we have a lot of support, and it just felt really good to be able to share that, all the hard work that had gone in to share that and give back to the community.
Well, and you kind of sort of spoke on that, and that was my next question. An all sports program, Scottsboro in every sport nearly, very productive. This goes all the way back to the administration, school board. Name some of those people who are important in that, because one person don't do it all. It takes a whole community, and it starts with the administration.
Oh, for sure. And sure, I'll go back to, Brad's retired now, but, Brad Dudley and Jeff Tubbs, who's our principal now, and Scott Hodges, he's central office now. That's the three guys that hired me. And I know Brad's retired now, but still he was a big part of it. They gave me a chance to come to Scottsboro, that I'll be forever grateful for them to trust me, with that. And they all had daughters that played too, so to trust me with that. And, I hope that we've made them, I hope we've made them proud what we've done, but it's been, they've given us, like I said, Mr. Tubbs is a principal now. He was assistant then and athletic director. Him and Scott Hodges, he's basically our athletic director for our system, student services. And they just do a really good job of helping what we need. A lot of times with city systems, it is what it is. There's a lot of red tape. It is what it is, but they do a good job of buffering that so we don't see all of it, and using common sense and giving us everything that we need to be successful. No unnecessary roadblocks and all that. And, that's not always easy in a city system. You don't always hear it, but, they've done a good job of that for us. And Brad did a really good job. Brad did an amazing job with that when he was principal too. Both Brad hired me, then he left for 3 years, left 3 and came back for 3 more. He did a really good job of, sifting through the red tape for us.
Yeah, and I understand, and when you hear people, and I've been in the media a long time, and the bigger cities you get, you'll hear, like, your bigger cities, it's a lot of politics involved. Well, that's every big city. It's not just Scottsboro. It's everywhere. It's one of those things you have to tiptoe through and make the best of it. That's just the way. That's just the way the system works.
Right, and I would like to say too that we had board members too. I'd like to think that we had board members that were very supportive and helped us through a lot of red tape stuff too, that really allowed us to succeed too. The time while I've been at Scottsboro.
Yeah, well, that sounds good. Well, Coach, getting back to basketball, of course, I'm going to assume it's the same this year as it was last year. You're going to be in the Northwest region when this area stuff gets over with, and your cross region, you're going to be going to Hanceville. When we're talking about teams that we're used to, your Pisgahs and North Sand Mountains and your Iders and your Fort Paynes, they're headed to Jacksonville State. So it's a whole different ball of wax for Scottsboro having to go Northwest.
It is. At first, I'll be honest with you, when they first did it before last year, I was kind of upset because, there's no atmosphere. I'll never coach in a better atmosphere than, say, the Southside game at Jacksonville a couple of years ago, the year that we got beat in the final, in the state finals. That was just packed. They had quit letting people in. Jacksonville State is just an absolutely amazing venue for that. So I was a little upset going into last year, but we shot the ball well because, we didn't get a chance to play it at Wallace. My kids had never had a chance playing Wallace. I tried to make it work out. We couldn't find a MLK Day or anything like that. Just didn't work. But last year, it was really good atmosphere at Wallace too. And we shot really well and played really well against some good teams. So now I'll just be proud to. I'll be proud to get to region. Either one of them. It is what it is. Wallace was really good to us last year, so I'm completely content with whatever. The only thing is, I think the last time I looked, 6 out of the top 10 teams in 5A would go to the Northwest region there at Wallace in 5A. Now, that's unfortunate. Whoever makes it out of ours, there's a couple of ranked teams, Scottsboro and Guntersville. We'll cross with 2 ranked teams. There's just West Point will be ranked. I guess they're ranked 3rd, maybe there. There's 20-something and 1. They will be there. It's going to be a really, really tough region. Sardis, I think they were ranked in the last poll. It's a really, really tough region.
Yeah, and also, not to mention that Priceville and East Limestone are 2 teams.
That's what I'm saying. The 2 that we're crossing with. Yeah, I didn't call them by name, but the 2 that we're crossing with.
Yeah. So you're going to see those, and I think, and of course, Hansville has turned into being a great atmosphere over there. It has. But the thing is it's the familiarity part of it, because you'd like to see, if you were in the Northeast, you get to see all these people that you play against, and because a lot of times y'all don't get to spend a lot of time together, but y'all can go to a basketball game and you can sit down with, a coach, on an opposing team and sit down and talk a little bit. And you don't get to do that very often. And I think that's the part where Scottsboro don't get to go to the Northeast when all the other teams that you're familiar with are there.
Right. It is definitely different, but I'm looking at it from perspective. We've had to meet new coaches, make new friends, so to speak, there. So, I guess it would be more convenient going Northeast, but I will just be happy if we make it Northwest. We'll be happy to be there.
Yeah. Hey, I understand. Well, tell me this, Coach. Who do you see as being I don't know if you've played many of the top 10 that's from the Northwest. Most of your teams have been on this east side. But who have you kind of look at to be, that you put up a red flag danger zone besides Guntersville?
Well, after Guntersville, I guess just with their resume, you'd have to say West Point is, I guess they're ranked 3rd and 25-1, something like that. I'm not as familiar with their opponents, but I know they've beaten some really good teams. They've beaten Good Hope a couple times, beaten some really good teams. So I would say that they would have to be, a tier above. Not to downplay, Priceville, East Limestone, or any of them, but I would say that right now on paper, West Point looks, really, really good. The most, I think, probably the best team of the ones that I haven't seen much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that. Well, Coach, going into your area play, tell me some of the things. Some of the things you kind of hang your hat on, and what are some of the things that your basketball team needs to do to stay productive and keep this winning pace going? What are some of the things, the intangibles you kind of look at?
Well, we play a really fast pace. We want to play really fast and just put pressure on defenses when we're on offense constantly. We take a lot of pride in defense, and just pressuring every second. And we have 7 kids that are that all play the same, that all have bought into defense. So we really, really take a lot of pride into that. We don't want to give up blow bys. Everybody takes pride in guarding their position. Plus help side, and we're not real big, but I think we do a good job rebounding for our size. That's something we work on every day, and take a lot of pride in that. So, we want to force more turnovers and get more rebounds. And, ideally we want to get a lot more shots off than the other team that is our plan and our hope.
Every night. Well, tell me this. We had talked about the Fort Payne game, splitting with them. That Bob Jones over there in that type of atmosphere, the third-ranked team in Class 7A, what did you take away from that game? Is that where you kind of say this team is big game ready?
Right. It was just a really, really gutsy win. I think, what do they have? 4 Division I players and I know at least 1 Power 4 player or whatever, all that stuff. And we weren't intimidated, by the moment. We came out and pressured them, and, my kids didn't back down. It was a tough, very physical, hard fought game with their size, and they're so big. And I said it, all the time that, I know they have all the names, this, that, and the other. And, but I felt like Izzy was the best player on the floor, that night. And when you have the best player on the floor, you're always that, anything can happen when you have the best player on the floor. And she was that night. She had a huge stat line, and it was just a really, really big win, with all the big name players, and we were ready for the moment.
Yeah, because I know that was a huge win. I mean, it was published. I kind of read the story about it, and that was a big win for Scottsboro. I know, even though it was 7A, because it kind of gives you a measuring stick naturally. Well, Coach, it's all about basketball, and it's really, really busy this time of year, and kind of the kids get kind of bombarded. What are some of the things you try to do to kind of sort of take the pressure off to maybe get away from basketball just a little bit?
Well, we've been trying to put together to take them. It didn't work out last week. We wanted to try to go to a college game, and then, of course, the weather kind of messed us up. We couldn't find a bus driver one day, but that's something we're trying to do and may try to make happen this week. But the older I get too, it is more important for it to be fun for them. We want to try to do stuff at practice to make it fun. That said, this group is so keyed in that, not that we do, but we could do the same drill every day, and it would not feel redundant to them because they know the value in it. And obviously, I hope I'm not veering off too much from your question, but this group is so keyed in and they go so hard that it allows us to work on technique and fundamentals and technique more than, trying to coach effort that, that you have to do with a lot of teams. So it allows us to practice differently. But, we try to do stuff and come up with stuff too to make it fun for them. Like I said, the older I get, the more important that is for me.
Well, I think that may go back to when you've got a veteran group, it becomes business. I mean, there's that sense of urgency. You don't get to reset. You don't get a repeat. I know my senior year in football, we had like 12 seniors and like 10 of them started. So there's that sense of urgency. You don't waste no time. And football is it. And then you kind of surround yourself in that and you enjoy that part of it. Maybe this team does.
But, and I also think that we're so close. They just love competing together too. And one thing to go back to for fun, we went to Gatlinburg for our Christmas tournament. That was just a really good trip. I know we had 2 losses there. We beat a really good team. The first game had 2 tough losses, but it was just a really, really good time. Really convenient, really fun trip. So we try to do, and over the summer, we'll do stuff over the summer. We always go to Florida for camp and stuff just for them to do together. And I think they enjoy being together so much and just competing together, winning games together. That, like I say, if we've had a tough time scheduling this year, and we've been short games and wasn't able to play as many home games just because of that, and because of last couple of years' success. So they'll be asking me, like, if we only got one game 1 week, did you find us anybody? They want to know if I found anybody wanting me to plug that game in just so they can play and compete together. So it's not a chore for them. They really, really enjoy it. But last year, down the stretch, I remember Greg Bell telling me, our radio guy telling me that, he felt like toward the end of the year, it does get a little monotonous. Looks in your eyes. It's kind of like it's just same old, until when the tournament started, we found a whole new energy, a whole new gear, and a whole new energy, to compete on a different level. And that's what I truly expect this year too.
Yeah, well, I think you see that because when you're a perennial playoff successful team, you kind of gear yourself. It's kind of, you don't pace yourself, but mentally you leave something left in the tank. I think successful playoff teams, it don't matter if it's football, basketball, softball, year after year, they leave something in the tank for playoff time. And I guess that's what you're kind of saying, that reserve is going to kick in.
Yes, exactly. Like I said, this group, our kids naturally go hard, but we can get on them and challenge them. They find another gear, and playoff time, they find it even another gear. So it's just really special to be a part of, to be able to coach kids like that.
Well, I'm going to turn you over to Randy for a few minutes, but I want to answer you one more question. To get away from basketball a little bit, what do you try to do to unwind?
For me,
Yeah,
that's a good question. Well, I love going on trips and vacations, and I go on. I can't during basketball other than with the team. I've never been able to go on a winter trip for years, but I try to go on a fall break trip right before basketball starts. This year, me and several of my friends, we always go fall break trip. I met them in Pittsburgh. We went to a Steelers game. I'm not even a huge Steelers fan or anything, but that's just where we went. We'll pick out. It was San Francisco last year. I like traveling and trips, and going to games too. As crazy as it is, I probably get to watch less. Don't watch a lot of basketball during basketball season. I enjoy watching football games. I deer hunt. That helps get my mind off things. Usually Saturday afternoons, I'll go deer hunting to get my mind off things. I enjoy going to concerts and stuff when it works out outside of basketball. That's kind of, and then, I have a 5-year-old, so just chasing her around and whatever she wants to do is that really helps me get my mind off of things. And then taking her to the gym and just letting her spend time with the girls is real special to me also.
Well, and doing that, I was going to ask you about that, is taking her to the gym. Does that give the girls an opportunity to see a different side of Coach Childers, the fatherly side, because, hey, Coach Childers is human.
I think so. I told him if I'm not careful, I'm going to be too nice for my job. But it does. It lets them see a side, and I'm not real open and don't share a lot of things or whatever. So it gives them a time, and they're great role models, great influences for her. She loves going in the locker room with them, and just and going to games. She sits up the top, and when she hears the names, when they call it, they score, she gets excited. So it's just it's just very special for me to be able to get her involved with it and with the girls.
Yeah, because good and well this group that's gone through right here, these last few classes you had that's been successful, they're going to come back and say, Coach Childers, you've gotten soft. Because most players that play will come back and tell their coaches they get a little older, you've gotten soft over the years.
Well, I know, but the last time I said when I told them I was getting too nice for my job, they kind of just looked and shook their head no, like they didn't think so yet.
Yeah, not yet. But and that's the greatest thing. I mean, these young people don't know it yet, but this is a great time of their life when they come back and celebrate this championship from a year ago, and if they win another one this year, when they come back, they're going to realize, how important this time it is. Do you remind them to cherish the moment, because this is a great time in their life? They're getting to spend time with people that when they go their separate ways, they won't see anymore unless they have a reunion. And of course, you'll pick that friendship right back up. But this is a special time for these young people.
We talk about it all the time, especially when it gets tournament time, and not just with them, with the coaches. Anytime we do anything together, or especially with the kids, we take a step back to try to make sure that we savor it and enjoy it, because, like I said, it's a special time with a special group, and we're all just blessed to be a part of it. And so we definitely don't take it for granted. And some of the biggest, most important things is last year after our whole tournament run, we rode the bus back. Usually, everybody rides home with their parents, this, that, and the other, but we all rode the bus back together every single game. Even after the state championship, we rode the bus back together, ate together, all that, and that's the most special thing of everything. just enjoying those times together, and just those bus rides back were just so special. The last one we rode back to the square, and everybody was waiting, and it's just letting it all soak in, just special.
Yeah, and they'll remember those things a lot of times more than they will the ball game. Those memories will shoot in their head first more than they will the ball game a lot of times, because that's the memories that are important. Because it's the relationships you build up between these young people that makes all this worthwhile.
For sure.
Well, Randy, I'm going to turn it over to you, let you ask Coach a few questions. I'm sure you've got a lot on your mind.
Coach, I don't want to talk about basketball.
All right.
I'm a big believer in good kids grow up the gym, the ball field, the football stadium. And when you all talk about your kids, I hear nothing but good kids. Outside of basketball, what's your kids like?
Well, like I said, just in every aspect, I think tonight was actually our star night honor roll. They were all there. That's why they couldn't be on here with me. I think it ran till about 7:15 and 7:30. So they all make really good grades. Almost every one of them in the National Honor Society, which is very difficult to do. And their other sports, they're successful. We have several others that are state champions in different sports, and individually and team sports. With track and field, we have several state champions. I know Carolina is pole vault. Izzy is in one of the hurdle. I don't know if it's 200 hurdles or what. And then their state championships for the other teams, but they're just leaders. And whatever they do in the classroom, whatever sport they choose and play, they're just leaders and really good role models. And like I said, that goes back to the parents and the community, and they're just really, really good kids in every aspect.
And it sounds like you're continuing it with your daughter growing up around the gym. I have a 16-year-old that grew up around football fields until she found flag football. Now that's all she wants to do. Right. It is a blessing for those kids to be around sports. They learn a lot of lessons that they can apply the rest of life to their whole life.
Exactly. And like I said, that, I couldn't ask for better role models, examples for her to be around than our current team. It's just really, really special for her to be able to spend time with them at the gym and in the locker room.
Coach, one of the first shows we ever had on this network was the Tyler Van show when he was at Sylvania. And when he went to Scottsboro, we were talking one day, and he went on to bigger things, but he's never forgot us, and he'll pop in and do a show. He said it was amazing the amount of coaching talent at every sport at Scottsboro. Do you see that from your eyes, being a basketball coach, looking around at baseball and football and et cetera?
Oh, for sure. I think last year was it 8 state championships if they counted duels and wrestling. Who else can say that? And this year, I know we just won bowling a couple, over the weekend, won state championships, indoor track. I think the boys got, we just won a state championship. The girls got a red map. It's just really special. And that's a lot to be said about, the board and the administrators of, searching out and finding good coaches and supporting, giving us enough support to be successful. It's a really special time to be a Scottsboro Wildcat.
Coach, what What's it like when you have a need at Scottsboro? Say it financial, or even you need a new projector for the girls. It seems like the whole organization always takes care of their players.
For sure. Like I said, Shane White runs our tip-off club, but our it's just us in our town. It's so supportive. I think last year down the stretch, which actually I was talking to Don Webb tonight. He's going to buy us a meal. He wanted to take the girls out to a meal before Friday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're going to do that. And I think last year in our run, I don't think that we paid out of our account for a single meal the whole stretch. And food is really expensive now to take teams out. The whole stretch, we had churches step in, businesses step in to buy us meals and pay for stuff. And we're really blessed to have a whole lot of support from the businesses and the churches and just the community in general, our town as a whole. We're really, really fortunate. That's something that's not taken for granted.
Absolutely. Does the church or the business that's providing the meal, do they pick it, or do you have to get the girls to all agree on where they're going?
We let them pick sometimes, a little bit of both. We let them pick sometimes, and then sometimes it's the coach's turn, or whatever business. But Don Webb for this week, he said he didn't care somewhere in town, wherever the girls chose, and the twins are his grandkids, so they may have some strong influence on this meal.
Coach Clark at Gadsden State says he always just goes to Chick-fil-A because everybody eats Chick-fil-A. Because he lets the players pick, he gets 21 different opinions.
Right. Well, that makes sense too. Seems like BV, Buena Vista seems to be what the girls always choose in town there.
Coach, what does it mean to you as the head basketball coach of this program, state championship program, again, contending? When young Coach Childers was dreaming about his position down the road, did you dream of having a program like this and your name on it, or could you see that big at that time?
I guess when you're really, really young, you think that you're just going to coach harder than everybody, and it's just going to follow, and come together and work. And then I guess coached in Tennessee, maybe at a smaller school with only 3 classes or whatever, had some really, really good teams, and gosh, you wonder. The competition is so good, and your back's against the wall, and you wonder if anything is possible like that, and decided to come to Scottsboro and wasn't really looking for a job, and it just kind of, take a chance, wasn't sure. But what I do remember is, I guess Scottsboro High School opened up in like 2000, somewhere in there. I remember being in college and coming to the game there the first time and looking at that gym and just being blown away and thinking, I remember just like yesterday, I was thinking, gosh, I wish I could coach here one day. And, not having any idea that I would get an opportunity to be the girls coach, when I got a little older or whatever, but it's just all worked out. It's kind of surreal to think about the way it all worked out. And especially the way we've done it, with just our kids that have all come up together, just makes it even more special. But yeah, it's almost just surreal how everything worked out so well.
Well, hey, I want to jump in here, Randy. So I want to ask you, well, Coach, coaching basketball, boys, girls, what drew you to coaching in girls? Usually there's something that happens that you either coach boys or you either coach girls. How did you end up coaching girls?
And Phil stole my next question too, Coach.
Yeah.
That was...
You know what? When I got an opportunity when I was 25 years old. I'd been at Huntland, and me and Coach McGill coached the boys together, and I thought, honestly, I'd never coach girls. That's not what I had planned, and I had the opportunity for that. And I talked to a lot of people and close friends, and Johnny Backus was one of them that been my coaches in high school. We were good friends, and Vince Edmonds, and was real close at that time. We talked, and I was back and forth. And actually, to take it, as strange as it is, take the job, I said, well, if I can keep coaching my junior high boys for one more year, because I had a really good team, so they had to allow me to coach both of them to just to coach the girls there. But in Tennessee, it's kind of, if you're successful as a coach, you start coaching girls, is what everybody kind of does, because you're kind of away from football and it's its own. It's girls basketball is just really, really big in Tennessee, and but with that, it's also really difficult. So honestly, I never had plans and didn't think I would. And then once I coached and started coaching, and then that's just kind of what I came to love and what I was comfortable with. And girls basketball is growing more and more in Alabama. And like in our crowds now, especially like we played Gunnersville, I looked up and I didn't realize it until I saw the pictures of how packed it was on the bottom and top decks in our gym, which is, a really, really big gym. But to have somewhere in Alabama that cared about girls basketball, just like they did in Tennessee, was just a really, really good opportunity. Like in Tennessee, we had districts there, and every year our girls would make more money than the boys. It was just crazy, the interest in girls basketball there. But I guess that kind of made me, even get more competitive and just kind of, fall in love with coaching girls basketball. And that's just not that I wouldn't ever coach, boys again. I wouldn't, don't want to close that door, say that, but I just have a strong desire, just love to coach, just coaching girls. I feel like I've always said, coaching is a lot like playing cards, just a lot what hand you get. And, you got a little control. And I feel like with girls, you have just a little more control, with convince them that, that they're better than maybe even than they are. And so that aspect of it. And I feel like, man-to-man defense is cumulative. A lot of people talk about girls topping out when they're younger. And I feel like finding ways that is, that we play that is cumulative, that, allows girls to keep getting better, as they get, older.
Coach, I think in the state of Tennessee, and I'm a graduate of the University of Tennessee, I think the whole basketball culture up here begins and ends with, we were fortunate enough to have Coach Summit for so many years, who grew the sport at every level throughout the state, colleges, high schools. And maybe Tennessee got a jump on everybody else because of that.
I think that had a lot to do with it. Like I said, me and Craig McGill was at Huntland, over 20 years ago. We first went, and there'd be people mad if we scheduled a game the night the Lady Vols were playing. That was supposed to. We had no idea. We didn't know anything. But we kept up, but not. We didn't know you weren't supposed to schedule games when the Lady Vols were playing, and people. And there'd be people coming into my office looking, trying to catch a score, and people with headphones on everywhere. It was just it was still really, really big then what she did for basketball. And then, of course, Rick Enzel, we were pretty close to Shelbyville Central, and I got to see him,
Yes.
Rick Enzel, coach 1 year after I got there, coach Shelbyville's girls 1 year. And that I could not believe it when I went there and they played the girls game second last, and it was completely packed. And of course, then, he went to MTSU and he's still there 20-something years later at MTSU from that. But that was a big part of it. And then, of course, the whole Don Meyer thing at Lipscomb was big for basketball in Middle Tennessee.
And you had Wes Moore, who's at NC State now at UTC for years, and he built a powerhouse there. So the whole state's been blessed. Before I turn it over to Phil, though, there's a little bit of royalty for Huntland, too. If you're a Tennessee graduate, you know the Majors family.
The Johnny Majors, being from there, and Philip Fulmer being from Winchester, right up the road.
Yeah, sir. That carries a little royalty in the orange-clad fans too. But
Right.
Coach, before I get back to Phil, congratulations, and love hearing your passion, talking about your young ladies, and I love hearing about great young kids too, like that. I congratulate the parents, the community, and everybody for it.
Thank you so much.
Phil, don't. I've done spilled my Tennessee heart out. Don't turn me over anymore.
We won't. We'll let you by. We'll let you by. Well, Coach, now, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to ask you about this. What are your thoughts on the public-private school split? Uh, there's both sides of the fence, and there's still things to be worked out. But kind of, what is your thoughts on that?
I figured this question was coming.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what? I've just kind of I've kind of sat back and not put too much in it. I do think something needed to happen. Something needed to happen. I don't know if it was true. Like right before I left Tennessee, they did a public-private split there. So I've seen both sides of it. I do think something needed to happen. Some of the sports like, I know volleyball, obviously, and tennis and golf and stuff where the privates are winning so much. I don't know the real answer. I will say that, but only maybe 16% were private. So obviously the majority wanted it, but, maybe that's not fair either because, when 84% are public schools, I think something needed to happen. I'm not sure if I thought it would be in it right now or or later or tweaking the system, whatever. But I think more people wanted it than not. I will say that. I don't, and maybe it's not a free lunch, so to speak. I saw the side on Tennessee where which they call it Division II there was private, which is already a bigger deal. When they completely split, I will say that it watered down the public competition a little bit.
Very much.
Because if you are from, Nashville, Chattanooga, if you're anybody that's anybody, you're going to take, if you're a parent, you're going to take a scholarship because once they did that, then they could give scholarships and still, compete in athletics. You're going to take a scholarship to go and say, after I left Huntland, Webb Bell Buckle got, some couple really good kids there that, that going there, they guarantee your ACT so high, whatever, and all that. A parent can't turn it down. And so they end up with 6 Division I players in one class. So it watered down the public schools, around. But then again, I guess you're still competing on more of a level playing ground. But so basically in Nashville, it seems like if you're anybody that's anybody, they care about football and girls basketball, that, the private schools kind of take the best players. And I guess we'll see what happens like here. Yeah. And that said, also, I will say, though, that there's not as many big private schools with that kind of money. Hasn't happened in Alabama like it did in Tennessee, primarily around Nashville. Chattanooga has some too. But, the schools are typically smaller and haven't put as much money into it. It seems like as some of the big ones did in Tennessee. But, I guess it's like I said, there's going to be ups and downs to it for sure.
Well, I think you'll see the private schools grow in Alabama, and they do milk. Baylor McCallie is a prime example. When I was in school up there, we played them like I played tennis. Yeah, they were better than us. We still played them. Football, they were a little better, but after the split, they become way better. So now the public and private schools don't hardly play in anything. We couldn't compete with them in tennis. They were way better than us, but it was still fun playing them because you got to see how good you were when you played those teams. But then it gets too spread apart, and I think in Alabama, and this is just an example, like Westbrook. Yeah, they're a private school, but they're not they're not dominating, but it's going to force them to have to recruit to be able to compete on the level they're at. And of course, they're going to be playing 5 this year, but you're probably going to see a Westbrook have to play Notre Dame, Chattanooga Christian, Boyd Buchanan to fill their schedule because a lot of the public schools are not going to play them.
Right. That's right. And I don't know what the correct answer was. I thought, heck, maybe if they could have left the areas and stuff the same with public private together and then split them for the playoffs. I don't know. There's a lot of things that maybe could have been done. That would have helped people, fill schedules and stuff.
The only thing about it, Coach, is, I live in Chattanooga and I broadcast public school football. You had one team over 6-4 in the whole city of Chattanooga. And you had 2 teams that were nationally ranked in the top 25. That's the model you don't want to get to.
Exactly. And like I said, it's kind of the same thing in that, and Nashville seems to be the same thing. If you're,
It is.
especially football or girls basketball, you're going to play for, Murfreesboro. It hasn't really happened yet as much because there's not enough big private schools. But I expect Middle Tennessee Christian can't take everybody, but there's more open. I expect that'll be next though, and so kind of water down Murfreesboro then.
Just for example, yesterday the AL Rookie of the Year, Nick Kurtz, was having his homecoming at Baylor, and over at Hamilton Heights about 3 months ago they had a homecoming for Ace Bailey, who was a #1 draft pick in the NBA. So you can get that talent, but you can't play locally if you're going to have 2 #1 picks on one team.
Right. Very good point.
Yeah. Like you're talking about Murfreesboro, as it grows more and more, it gets closer and closer to Nashville. I mean, you can't tell much difference anymore. It's kind of sort of being absorbed that way. Well, Coach, one other thing I want to ask about that. Now, of course, I like the way that they've done, because I'm not totally. I'm on the fence on the public-private school split, because I see the pluses. I'm a member of the media, so I stay in the middle, and I can see I don't really have a real good feeling about how it's going. But now I do see when they fix the areas and the regions and all that stuff for the public schools in the state of Alabama, it has kind of squeezed a lot of teams together, and you're going to see more of your traditional rival schools playing each other because the areas are going to be squeezed together some. Do you think this is going to lead to region basketball and softball and baseball over area?
I do. And, that was kind of the big talk that we were kind of expecting before the public-private split kind of took off, this past year. But that was the big talk. We were expecting to go to districts or regions instead of areas, like I said. But when the public-private started, that kind of just, that took on a whole thing of itself, and that kind of just dominated the whole decision, it seemed like. But I would be for basketball now. There's a push to, and I could use us in Garnersville as an example of being in the same area, ranked first and second, whether we're the best two teams or not. We're close, we're up there, and both not getting to make it to the state tournaments. So, there was talk about going to regions in some way, having another sub-state game or something to try to get, where you can get the best teams at the state tournament. That was a big talking point before the public-private split kind of took over.
Yeah, but the thing is, I worry about that is you throw. I think that's a lot of times if you're going to seed teams, you throw politics into it. That's what I'm afraid if you start seeding teams, because some teams will have a great record, but they don't necessarily play very good teams. You can't go. Because a lot of times when you see the top 10, especially football, it's according to record. It ain't really according to. Yeah. Now basketball is different. I think you have enough comparison of teams playing each other that a 9-loss team can be ranked #1.
You're right. That's true. At our area meeting, I was talking to somebody, and they actually had the idea, said, what if, our state's narrow enough that, what if it was predetermined that from our area that the winner would go northeast, the loser would go northwest, and vice versa. I thought that was, a pretty good idea that could get if the best two teams were in the same area, then they wouldn't see each other to the state finals or whatever. And Tennessee does that. That said, there's a lot of flaws in, the way they do it too. There's ups and downs. I may be veering off the question here, but I felt like when I was in Tennessee, that's kind of what they did. They had districts, which is about like 2 areas combined. So our district tournaments were better in Tennessee and brought more people and involved, but the region tournaments are better in Alabama. So, and in Tennessee, by doing that, 4 teams made out of every district. There was always incentive. Every year there was incentive for somebody to throw games and lose games in the third place game, or just the way they're set up. So I guess there's no perfect scenario.
You're incentivized to lose in Tennessee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's like down here. You would think that would be if you had a region, then 4 teams would move on, and from that rather than 2 out of the area, you would have 4 to move on, which puts another district tournament in that. But I think that would make your sometimes your area tournaments are so small. They're hard to draw folks because it's just a couple of games, and sometimes there's some real lopsided games. But I think a region or district tournament would be a lot more enticing for the fans. Now, will that work? And like what you're talking about is when you're spreading people over the state, travel becomes a factor.
Right. Yeah, and I agree that going to region, especially which I know now this is a different talking point now since the private's going to be gone. But when they went to 7 classes, it kind of made the area small enough that it lost some of the flash, having some, 3-team areas and stuff by going to 7 classes. So, but like I said, now, going back to 6 is kind of the same, with losing the private ones. But I would think it would definitely, I think I would be for going to bigger, like regions.
Yeah, and I think that could say if you end up in an 8-team region, you're going to have 14 given games that you have to play, and it'll make scheduling a whole lot easier, and travel won't be as bad.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Like in Tennessee, we would usually have about 8 teams in our district, so there's 14 games there that you have, and it was definitely a lot easier scheduling, and the districts were a big draw.
Only problem we got, we're 4A. We end up playing to get a 4A district. We have Knoxville and Chattanooga combined, so that's our travel.
Yeah, that's not great. And like at Huntland, a lot of times our district would be up in Rutherford County. Let's just say Christian was in there before they got split.
Yeah,
Eagleville. So that was a lot of traveling too.
We go as far as Lenoir City, from Hickson to Lenoir City.
Wow.
That's a pretty good haul. Well, Coach, we appreciate you coming on. I guess we hit a lot of topics, and hopefully we covered everything. Of course, naturally, we want to wish you the best of luck. These young ladies, maybe they can bring home that blue once again. There's a lot of intangibles involved, but this is a great time of the year. I can remember when I was in high school, basketball was an okay sport. Now it's a whole lot of fun. Folks really enjoy it. They come in numbers. Last year in that 1A region final at Jacksonville State, it was a packed house for Spring Garden and Ider, and that's the kind of stuff you love to see.
It is, and like I said, our Gunnersville games, and Gunnersville and Albertville games, and of course Plainview girls draw a huge crowd. Skylines girls have a huge following, so it's really a good time, and a good time for, of course, Ider. In primarily Northeast Alabama around us, I think 4 of the number 1s or maybe 4 of the number 1s are all right there in Northeast Alabama. So it's a really good time for girls basketball in the area and in the state as well.
Yeah. Well, Coach, when you're counting, you're counting Ider, North Sand, and Pisgah, and Plainview, and Scottsboro, and Fort Payne, and Gunnersville, elite teams. In Northeast Alabama, it's unbelievable that you have that good of elite teams.
It is a special time for girls basketball for sure.
Yeah. Coach, I think it's better than when Phil was in high school too, because they don't have peach baskets anymore. So, it makes it. I got a little bit.
He's older than I am.
I am. Coach, I appreciate it. Come back and see us again. Promise.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Hey, we'll see you same time next year, getting set up for the tournament.
So there's a lot of work to do between now and then, but thank you.
Yeah, anytime.
Maybe it'll fall in place to where we can have a bunch of the girls on. You win that state championship once again, and we'll get them to come on and celebrate.
That would be good.
Yeah, I hope you are right. Like I said, there's a lot of work to do between now and then, but I hope you're right. Thank you.
I hope you're cutting down the peach basket that Phil used to shoot in. Randall Cunningham, Phil Harris, Coach Childers. This has been River City Media. Scottsboro basketball. Good night. God bless.